I couldn't believe my eyes when the audacious man strode up to our table. Without hesitation, he seized my unfaithful wife's hand and, with a sneer, said, "Why stay with this weakling? Let's dance first, and then I'll show you what a real man can do." Keeping my composure, I executed a swift practice move. The sickening crunch of his hand echoed through the room, followed by his anguished screams as he collapsed to the floor. The restaurant, a high-end establishment in Geneva, radiated understated luxury. Dim lighting bathed the polished mahogany tables in a warm glow, while soft piano music played in the background. It was a venue suited for power lunches and elegant celebrations, a world I once reveled in. But tonight, it felt like a gilded prison. My wife, Amal, sat across from me. Her beauty was impossible to overlook. Her dark hair was meticulously styled, and her crimson lips matched the sleek evening gown that hugged her figure. Yet, for all her grace and refinement, her eyes betrayed a chilling distance, a void I couldn't ignore. We had been married for 15 years, but the past 6 months had brought an unspoken change. Late nights at her law firm, secretive messages, and unexplained absences had carved a rift between us. I had hoped tonight might bridge that gap, a chance to rekindle what we had lost. Instead, I found myself a bystander, watching the woman I loved drift further away. As we sipped our wine, a shadow loomed over our table. I glanced up to see a man in his early 30s, tall, muscular, and exuding arrogance. His tailored suit fit him perfectly, but it couldn't mask his overconfidence. Piercing blue eyes locked onto Amal, ignoring my presence entirely. "Amal," he said smoothly, his voice a calculated mix of charm and smugness. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." Amal froze, her glass suspended midair. Her eyes darted between him and me before she finally spoke. "Lucas," she stammered, her tone betraying more than she likely intended. "What are you doing here?" "Just enjoying the city," he replied with a smirk. To my utter disbelief, he reached out, took her hand, and added with disdain, "Why stay with him? Let's dance first, and I'll show you what I can offer." The restaurant fell silent. I could feel the eyes of curious onlookers fixed on us. Amal tried to pull her hand free, but Lucas held firm, his audacity igniting a fire of anger within me. I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "You have 3 seconds to let go of her hand," I said, my tone calm but charged with menace. Lucas turned his smirk on me. "And if I don't?" What followed was immediate. The sound of bones breaking shattered the silence, and Lucas fell to the floor, clutching his shattered hand. His screams reverberated through the room, drawing every gaze to our table. Amal gasped, her face a mix of shock and fear, while the other diners froze in astonishment. "Magnus!" she hissed, her voice trembling as she grabbed my arm. "What are you doing?" I ignored her, crouching to meet Lucas's pain-stricken gaze. My voice dropped to a whisper, only he could hear. "This is just a beginning," I said, my tone devoid of sympathy. "You made a mistake tonight, and I'll make sure you regret it." He glared up at me, his face contorted in agony. "You'll pay for this." He spat through gritted teeth that I turned to Amal, who remained frozen in her seat. "Let's go," I said coldly. She hesitated, her wide eyes darting between me and Lucas. "Now," I snapped, my tone cutting through her indecision. Slowly, she stood, her heels clicking against the floor as she followed me out. Behind us, the whispers of other diners began to rise, turning into a low hum of speculation. The drive home was suffocating. Silence filled the car like a heavy fog, and Amal sat rigidly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I could see her mind racing, desperate to find an explanation for what had unfolded. As soon as we pulled into the driveway, I turned off the engine and faced her. "Talk," I demanded, my voice slicing through the quiet. She flinched, her composure crumbling. "Magnus, I don't know what you want me to say," she whispered, her gaze fixed on her lap. "I want the truth," I said, leaning closer. "Who is he?" How long has this been going on? Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. She had exhausted my sympathy long ago. It's complicated, she began, but I cut her off with a bitter laugh. Complicated? I echoed. Let me simplify it for you. Either you tell me everything now, or I'll find out on my own. And trust me, you won't like how that plays out. Her shoulders slumped and the fight drained out of her. 6 months, she admitted, her voice barely audible. It started 6 months ago. The confession hit me harder than I expected, even though I had long suspected it. I drew in a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. What exactly was tonight supposed to be? I asked, my voice unsettlingly steady. A chance to humiliate me in front of everyone? To throw it in my face? No, she cried, her voice cracking. I didn't know he'd be there, Magnus. I swear. Stop lying. I interrupted, my tone sharp. I saw the way you looked at him, the way you froze when he spoke. You knew. She buried her face in her hands, her sobs filling the confined space of the car. I stared straight ahead, my thoughts racing. Answers were necessary, but more than that, I needed a strategy. The following morning, I sat in my office, the Geneva skyline sprawling before me. My mind churned with anger and cold resolve. Betrayal coursed through me like venom, but I refused to let it destroy me. If Amal and Lucas thought they could walk away unscathed, they were about to face a rude awakening. I began with Lucas. A simple online search unearthed his carefully manicured social media profiles. Photos of luxury cars, private jets, and designer suits painted a picture of excess. But beneath the glossy facade, cracks appeared. Failed business ventures, lawsuits, and whispers of shady dealings. Lucas wasn't untouchable. I reached out to a network of associates, people in finance who owed me favors and thrived on uncovering fraud. Within hours, I had a damning report on Lucas. Bank records, unpaid loans, and risky investments revealed a man living well beyond his means. It was enough to ruin him, but I wasn't finished. Next, I turned my attention to Amal. While she pretended life was normal, I quietly collected evidence of her affair, emails, text messages, and even photos of her and Lucas together. I stored everything in a secure digital folder. It wasn't revenge, it was leverage. If she chose to fight me during the divorce, I wouldn't hesitate to use it. The final step was to ensure their downfall played out publicly. I arranged for Lucas to be invited to an elite charity gala, attended by Geneva's most powerful figures. Simultaneously, I made sure the dossier on Lucas's misdeeds reached the hands of a scandal-loving journalist. By the end of the event, Lucas's financial crimes and manipulative schemes were front-page news across Switzerland. Amal faced her reckoning when I handed her the divorce papers. She tried to object, but the evidence left no room for denial. Our prenuptial agreement ensured she walked away with nothing, and the court of public opinion sealed her social demise. The aftermath began with bold headlines splashed across every major outlet. High society scandal, Lucas Heen exposed in fraudulent schemes. The dossier laid bare every dirty secret. Financial crimes, extortion, and the systematic exploitation of wealthy women. Lucas's once pristine image dissolved, and he went into hiding. Authorities launched a formal investigation, freezing his accounts and seizing assets. Former allies abandoned him, eager to escape the fallout. Amal fared no better. The whispers in high society circles grew louder. Friends vanished, and invitations dried up overnight. Her family, mortified by the scandal, distanced themselves, leaving her to face the fallout alone. When we met in court to finalize the divorce, she was a shadow of her former self. Her once elegant appearance was replaced by tired eyes and quiet desperation. "Magnus," she said softly as we exited the courtroom, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you, but was all this really necessary?" I met her gaze, my expression unyielding. "You made your choices, Amal. Choices have consequences." Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded and walked away without another word. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. The house, once filled with tension and silent resentment, now felt peaceful. I threw myself into my work, closing deals and expanding my firm's reach across Europe. The sting of betrayal lingered but dulled over time, replaced by clarity and purpose. One evening, I attended another charity gala, this time with a sense of quiet confidence. As I moved through the room, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. Turning, I found myself face to face with a woman who exuded quiet sophistication. "Mr. Adler," she said warmly, "I'm Isabel Foer, a historian. I've heard a great deal about your work. It's impressive." We spent hours in conversation. Her wit and intelligence were a refreshing contrast to the shallow interactions I had grown accustomed to. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something real, a reminder that life, despite its challenges, still held beauty. That night, standing on the balcony of my home with the city lights stretching out before me, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. Betrayal had cut deep, but it had also forged me into something stronger. Lifting a glass of wine to the night sky, I whispered words that had become my mantra. Pain sharpens us. Resilience shapes us. As I turned to go inside, I left one final thought hanging in the cool evening air. Betrayal can break you, but renewal rebuilds you.